Okay.
We are clearly on the record. We are live. Minu, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to season 2 of Ruben's podcast.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah. So Minu and I, unlike most people on the guest, well, I won't say most, but Minu and I ran into each other in New York like a few months ago. Few months ago, maybe a few months ago. Yeah. It was the most random. I won't say most random, but it was the most like, how do I describe it? We were on this terrace, shout out to Madhu for helping us host this amazing party on this terrace. And then suddenly this person is there, she's like, hi. And I'm like, I knew there were going to be like a lot of like Stephanians here, but I'm looking at this person, I'm like, who are you? Like, am I supposed to know you? And by the way, this is not even like with masks, right? People when you wear masks, you're like, oh, you can blame it that I can't recognize you. But I'm like, is this Minu? This looks like Minu, but I had no clue that she was in New York. How is she even here? And I was like, Minu? And she's like, yeah. So that's how Minu and I reconnected after a very, very long time. And you're currently now in New York. What? It's 9 a.m. there.
Yeah.
Start of a weekend. What do you usually do on a weekend?
So I think that I have no sense of a difference between a weekend and a weekday anymore because I have full
Wow.
control over my calendar as a PhD student.
Okay.
So unfortunately, I do work on weekends sometimes.
Hmm.
But that comes with the benefit that if I want to take a Monday off, I can take a Monday off.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Nice.
so I don't have a distinction between weekends and weekdays per se, but it is true that on weekends, other people are free, people who are not in
Ah,
academia. And
yes.
so most of these plans are made sometime in the evening. And, if you have to go for a movie or a concert, it's easier to schedule these
Hmm.
things on an evening, on a weekend when
Got
I
it.
know that everyone else is free. And this is also the
Mm-hmm.
time when I get to have long conversations with my parents because over the weekday, I'm just like, okay, I'm going to school, bye bye.
Yeah.
And then on the weekends, I get to talk to my parents, my niece, and
Hmm.
weekends are also big for doing laundry,
Of
for
course they are.
buying groceries. I love grocery trips. And then cleaning up my room. Yeah.
Mm.
So it's
Do,
just
do you do
like,
you go to
get
like
your
these
act together.
massive do you go to these massive Targets to buy your groceries, or is it just like a quick round the block?
No, I love walking to Whole Foods. It's like a 20-minute walk
Oh,
from here and it's right next to the pier. So it
okay.
becomes like an excuse for me to make that walk, go to the pier, walk around a little bit, and then head to Whole Foods. And because I'm walking back, I don't buy a lot either. I just buy enough for
Oh,
the week
that's so
because I have to
smart.
carry it back. Yeah, so that's my grocery trip. And I love walking
Got
down
it.
the aisles. I love picking out cereals. It's my favorite thing.
Uh,
It's one thing I can check off my list, unlike, I don't know,
yeah.
research, where I'm like, oh, there's no way I can finish this. Groceries, I can finish. Same with laundry.
Mm,
Love it.
got it. So for people who haven't, you already figured that Minu is in New York now. But as a quick summary, she sent me a note before we got started on this one. But Minu studied economics. She was a batch junior to be. So you probably graduated in 2014?
Hmm.
Correct.
That's
So
right.
you were in H.D. in from 2011 to 2014. You studied economics. You graduated in 2014. You went to do your master's in economics itself. Correct.
Yep.
Yeah, in
Always faithful
economics.
to econ.
Always faithful to econ. And then you moved to Bombay. You were there for about 2 years. You then went to work at PwC, spent another 2 years there, again in Bombay. And then you decided to go back to the beautiful world of econ, always faithful to econ. And you moved to New York to do your PhD. And you've been there for 4 years now,
4.5.
and
Yeah.
4.5 years now. So we'll talk about a lot of that and some other stuff during the pod. But here's a word from our sponsor. Oh, we don't have a sponsor. I'm kidding. If anybody does want to sponsor the episode, you can please leave me a message. But anyway, so maybe let's start back in college. I know a lot of people who listen to the pod who went to college with us. What's like your favorite or your favorite memory from college? If you had to think and look back now, or what's the most like vivid or your most favorite memory from your time at Stephens?
I don't have a vivid memory per se, but there are lots of activities that I did that I really enjoyed. For
Hmm.
example, we used to, like me and my friends, we used to walk around a lot. on campus. We
Mm-hmm.
would make 1,000 trips around the same 27-acre campus.
Yeah.
Before dinner, after dinner, head back only at 10. And we used to go get ice cream at Nirula's that I really liked. In the winters, we used to just like lie down on the lawns with reading lists, thinking we are reading, but we're not reading. We're just sitting in the sun and chit-chatting. I think there was a time when there were just way too many puppies on
Yes.
campus. We used to play with them. Um, yeah, just these things. And another thing that I remember is playing games with Harshit during class. We would play
Mm.
this game called Bulls and Cows, which is like the worded version. And
A Wordle
Harshit also
version?
had this. Yeah, I think we've played Bulls and Cows too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think Wordle is a version of that.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
I don't know what's the original one, but yeah, I remember you and I played this during some seminar, and I also remember the word you gave me. You gave me the word kiln, Kiln,
Oh,
and
wow.
no, yeah, and then I think after you left, the seminar was over, but our st game still wasn't, and then you were texting me, and at the end I guessed it right, and I was so proud of myself. So that was the first time I actually heard of the word kiln. I did not know it.
Oh,
But yeah.
wow. I do not recollect this, but it sounds about right. A seminar, it was probably like a department seminar, and we were like, sit here until the speaker leaves. Yeah, that probably was true.
Yeah, and then Harshit also had a bunch of these games on his phone, like Snuggle Truck, and I don't know. I think that time Subway Surfer was. Is it Subway
Oh,
Surfer? It is
yes,
Subway Surfer.
Subway Surfer.
Had
Yes, it
just
is.
picked up, and Temple Run, and it's
Oh,
just
yes,
amazing.
Temple Run. Oh my God. I don't know for you when you were in college, was WhatsApp a thing when you were in your first year or second year?
I don't know. I think so.
Yeah, because
I
I was
think
talking
so.
I know BBM was like when we were in college, I think year one, first year, second year, I think BBM was really big. And I think only like year three was WhatsApp a thing. And then like it's so crazy that we had no Snapchat. We had no like I started doing Snapchat after I left college. But there was no Snapchat, there's no WhatsApp. Yeah, Temple Run is what we used to play on like the phone. And yeah, it's crazy when you think back and you're like WhatsApp is like so critical right now, and we live like life with no WhatsApp. Like, wow. But
I
yeah,
know. If
Temple
we talk
Run.
about this, we're just going to be reminded of our age. So let's just pretend like what's always
everybody,
existed.
everybody
What's the
who
big
listen,
deal?
everybody who listens to this podcast is the same age. And the stats show everybody's in like the 28 to 34. So we know how old everybody is. Everybody's getting like back pain and all of that shit. Anyway, so okay, so memories from college, walking around. Yeah, I do think we spent a lot of time walking around. For me, I think it was more just like hanging around at the Dabba tree. I would just sit there and just like literally wait for people to come and talk because that was like the highest footfall area in college. Like you knew somebody or the other would come by the cafe, and you're like, oh, who am I going to chat with today? And maybe many years later, look at where I've reached, doing the same thing just differently. Anyway, okay, so that was college. You started doing your masters in econ. From what I remember from you, that was always like the plan, right? Or were you like, oh, I'm not sure. Let me just keep studying more. I'm not sure if I want to get a job. Or did you always know that you wanted to like just pursue academia and just go deeper into econ? You kind of liked econ when you were in college, right?
Yeah, so to be honest, I chanced upon economics at Stephens. It wasn't something that I planned to study. I
Okay.
actually was the
What did you plan
kind
to
who
study?
thought that I wanted to be a doctor because, I mean,
Whoa.
for someone who had good grades in school, it seemed just obvious that you would just become a
Wait
doctor.
a
What's the
sec.
big deal?
Were you the one? Were you the one who did PCMB in class 12?
I did. Yes, I am that kid.
Oh, you are that kid. Oh shit. Okay, so you wanted to be a doctor and you just chanced upon econ in college.
Yeah, so I didn't even know about Stephens. A family friend told that. So a family friend basically was like, "So why do you want to be a doctor?" And I was like, "Isn't that just the thing that good students just become doctors?" And I mean, I love it. What's bad about it? I love biology. I love. And so he was like, "Well, there's a school. It's in Delhi. You might want to look it up." And
Yeah.
also, another thing that good people, I mean, smart kids do is just become an IAS. And a lot of students from Stephens become IAS. So that's another thing for you to think about. So I said, okay. And so Stephens is the only school in DU that I applied to. It's the
Mm.
only non-medicine school that I applied to. And I was going to, honestly, I just looked up what are the two most sought after courses for people who want to become an IAS after Stephens, and it was econ and history because you can take it as a third subject or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I did a little bit of econ in school, and history is history. And
Yeah.
so I gave my first interview for econ, and it was mostly a math-based interview because what else could they ask? And it went well.
Hmm.
It went well. I remember I came out to the corridor and I told my dad, I think this is it. I'm not going to interview for the history thing. I think this should be fine.
Wow.
And my dad was like, okay, whatever you say. And then, yeah, I got into econ, and my plan was just to graduate and then start preparing for my civils. I honestly, so my issue is that I don't have a goal in life.
Mm.
I set the goal as what should be a good goal for someone in my position.
Mm.
So I don't know what I want in life. I know that what people who are in the same situation as me want, and I think that's a good enough goal for me to pursue until I figure out what I really want.
Got it.
And that was the phase I was in. And so I was like, okay, let's do econ. Except I really liked the classes. Not all of them, but I really liked most of the classes. I liked what I
Hmm.
was studying. It seemed very intuitive. And then usually with econ and math students, there's a lot of pressure to do internships and then,
Yeah.
get a job. And I didn't want to do that. I was just enjoying the subject, and I was enjoying the freedom of being in college and, living in a hostel, having friends around, and I just wanted to continue that. I didn't want to suddenly just switch to work and earn. It sounded great to have a lot of money. I don't know, the packages were just amazing, the things that my classmates were getting. But
Mm.
I told myself I didn't want that. And so I said, fine, then the next thing to do is just get a master's because that's what students who like economics do, just go get a master's. And so that's what I applied for.
Got it.
And yeah, I applied again to DSE, IGIDR, JNU, and then I went to IGIDR and I really loved the campus.
Hmm.
I think I think it's like a 14-acre-ish campus, and it only has students who do econ, and so you
Mm.
have masters and PhD students. So it's a beautiful campus for just 70 students,
Oh, wow.
and
14
that was the
acres
first
just
time
for
I went to Bombay.
70 students.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's on a beautiful hillside in Goregaon next to the Sanjay Gandhi National Park, and there's a film city close by. It's like a world in itself, with like a
Nice.
swimming pool and some fitness facility, and our hostels had like modular kitchens. It was a really beautiful setup. It looked very fancy,
Hmm.
and I was like, yeah, this sounds like a good deal. I'm going to come here, live a wonderful life, and just study econ. And so I was like, here, this is where I'm going. And then thankfully
Nice.
they wanted me to, and so I went there.
Okay, so before we talk about that, what happened to your plans of studying medicine? Like this random guy, or I don't know, random guy, but maybe some person told you, hey, just do econ for IS and you just dropped the plan for medicine?
No, so that's not it. So I didn't do any coaching when I was doing my schooling. I just
Mm-hmm.
basically gave those entrance exams. I think I cleared the first, I cleared the prelims in some, but I never managed to get like a decent enough rank
Mm.
to get a good seat.
Got
And
it.
so everyone usually suggests that you take a year off, you go to a coaching institute, spend a year studying, preparing for the entrance exam, and then you go for it. But I was like, nah, now I have this college to go to. Seems like a good
Okay, okay,
price.
okay.
I'm just gonna, like, I
Well,
sold my quote unquote dream very easily.
well, it was, well, yeah, that was probably what originally your plan, but then, but looks like it panned out pretty well. So you landed up in IGIDR to study a master's. And you mentioned in your voice note that throughout this last decade, you had expectations of things, and then there was a reality of things. For people who are not seeing Minu, like Minu's rolling her eyes and like falling back a little bit. So let's talk about IGIDR. What was your expectation of it, and then what turned out to be reality?
Um, so I think going into IJR, I just wanted the same college experience that I had at Stephens. Again, like I said, it's a residential campus. You're there. I mean, I don't think IJR was that bad. It was just a lot more serious studying than I
Mm.
anticipated. I think I learned a lot more econ or clarified my concepts much better at IJR.
Mm-hmm.
The only issue was that I didn't anticipate that it would be a problem that it's a campus that has only econ students. So
Mm.
70 students in a
Why is that a
14-acre
problem?
campus.
Or why was that a
Yeah, so
problem?
17 so like 70 students in a 14-acre campus sounds great because I mean you have access to all the amenities, it's not too crowded, but you're
Yeah.
seeing the same set of people all the time for 2 years. And it's very nice, and I feel like as you graduate from undergrad to masters to PhD, you sort of inject yourself into a bubble of people who think like you, who work like you, who are of a certain kind. And this sort
Mm-hmm.
of was like that. I felt like, yeah, I felt like I did not hear outside opinions. I didn't hear of anything except econ and maybe our own lives that we were really obsessed with. Like we were obsessed with each other's lives because what else to do on campus? Um, yeah, so, but I mean, it wasn't that bad in retrospect. It was just a lot of work.
Yeah.
I did not expect doing that much homework. But yeah.
Well, it was a master's after all. So maybe just for me to also understand, like on a scale of 0 to 10, like on where 0 is like zero knowledge of economics and say 10 is like, I don't know, all the knowledge of economics, and say you're at a PhD and you're maybe at like say level 8 for argument's sake. Where do you think you are at when you finish university or when you finish undergrad? Like, are you like at a 1 or like a 2? Like, how little do you know when you finish like undergrad in eco?
Um, so first of all, I think that as I got more degrees, I've only realized that I know a lot less. So if you say I'm an 8
Hmm.
on 10, I'm not confident of that. I just feel like I'm a very successful imposter.
Hmm.
But compared to now, what did I know about econ in undergrad? If I were an 8, which I'm not, if I were an
Hmm.
8 today, maybe undergrad econ would have been like a 2 or a 3.
Wow. So
Hmm.
that less.
It's still better than the average. It's still better than the average population that reads about econ only through Econ Times or I don't know,
Yeah.
some articles that get popularized in media.
Hmm.
Um, but I mean, in undergrad, I don't think I studied econ for econ, except for a couple of subjects that really intrigued me. Otherwise, I was just studying
Hmm.
for grades. And I
Hmm.
just wanted to maintain decent enough grades to make sure that whatever this plan I have of doing what is good for students who have good grades just continues.
Okay.
So yeah, so I just maintained I mean, I had good grades and yeah, there were a couple of subjects that I studied because I was interested in them, but
Hmm.
otherwise I was just there to have
Got
fun.
it. But I don't know what you did in IGIDR, but I was looking you up on LinkedIn and you were a gold medalist there.
Yeah, I don't know how,
So
but yeah.
so gold medalist, for people who don't know what it is, it's like you top of your class,
Mhm.
top of
That's
your
right.
class. So well, you kept getting your grades right through. Um, okay, so you did IGDR. You were 2 years there. What made you go? What made you sort of move to PwC? That's not very econ. That's like I now really need that money. Was it that, or what made you go to do PwC?
So, very honestly, I wanted to tell myself that I can do well at an industry job. That if
Mm.
I decided to switch up my plans a little bit and get an industry job, I'd be fine.
Yeah.
That this is not some sort of safe space that I'm trying to hide myself in. And so that was one reason. And the other was that I wanted a break. I mean, maybe I applied too much of myself during the master's. Maybe I didn't need
Hmm.
to. Maybe I was studying way too much than necessary. I just needed a break. And I wanted, so when I was in Nigeria, I was in Bombay. It's a beautiful city to be in. Uh, and I had really good friends in school, and every time that we did not have homeworks or exams, we would go to
Hmm.
Hawaii and have fun. And go around places and I don't know, go to Marine Drive. That was also the time when Uber had just begun
Mm.
its operations in India. So it used to give these free rides. Like if you
Oh,
sign up
yes.
and if you refer someone, both of you get free rides. So we just took a lot of these, like 6 people, stuff yourself in a car, go to Marine Drive, chill for some time, go get some keema paratha or something, and then come back.
Yeah.
And I just thought that, well, work should be like that, except I will have more money, I'll have more freedom, I'll have a lot of independence, I'd live in a fancier place, and I wouldn't have exams and studying to do. So it should be a lot more fun. And so I said, I mean, I can always come back to academia if I want to. Let me try this. Maybe I like this. And so I sat for placements. I got a really good job, and the office was located in Powai. So this is the place where we used to go to have fun. So I was like, why not? Let's do this. And the other thing was that I'm still going to be in Bombay, and most of my friends from campus, with the exception of one really good friend who had to move to another city, most of us were still going to be in Bombay. So I felt like
Yeah.
everything else is controlled. Now I just have more money and I have more freedom to, do things that I like. It was a good
Yeah.
deal. I took it, Ruben. I decided to
You took
become a
it.
consultant.
So you went to PwC. What were you doing there at PwC? Was it just like what anybody else would do out of like business school or undergrad, or was there something specific you were doing, given your immense background in econ now?
No, so I did the same work as, I don't know, people hired from IITs or IIM. So there was no distinction like that.
Okay.
So what we used to do is that a client would come with a specific business problem, and when answering that, we would do a lot more data analytics. So we would do some either market research, or we would have some information based on some work we've done for other clients, or they would share some specific data that either we would request for, or that they would share, be like, look at this and tell us how to fix the problem. And so it was, I think,
So pretty standard consulting, yeah.
Yeah, pretty standard consulting.
Got it.
And yeah, so in the first year, they quickly make sure you're up to speed with Python, R, and all those things, and
Oh,
Tableau.
for
And
us, they just
then,
made sure that we were up to speed on Excel and PowerPoint.
oh,
None of the
really?
fancy stuff.
No, so for us, it was like so we did have trainings on like how to present your work and how to market and how to write effective decks. For the longest time, I didn't know presentations were called decks.
Yes.
But okay. And then they would teach us all these fancy tools about like both for visualization as well as for statistical analysis. And then they would
Got
just
it.
staff us on different projects and be like, now you're take care.
Got
Bye
it.
bye.
What was like, what did you enjoy the most from your time at PwC, or just time in like corporate consulting?
I like the money, I'll be honest. It was great to have money. My parents were so proud of me.
Especially in
Um,
Bombay, yeah, where like you really need the money. Yeah, you can, I think, get by, but yeah, money, Bombay with some amount of money can be pretty good.
yeah, I think that money makes enjoying Bombay a lot easier.
Mm.
Um, and then you get these trips. You can go to, I don't know, client visits and travel a lot, and that was fun. I also liked that my first year had a very steep learning curve. I picked up like text analytics and like machine learning and all of those things pretty fast in my first year because of either project demands or because there were these trainings that were happening.
Yeah.
And I must say that the place that I joined, it was really good for someone who's for whom this is their first job, because it was not a toxic environment, at least not in the first 2 years that I was there at.
Yeah.
Um, Everybody was very supportive. I had a lot of people from IGIDR who were studying there. So like, I see some of my favorite seniors who are working there, and like I said, all my friends were still around in Bombay. So I had these PwC friends and I had these IGIDR friends, and it was nice. It
Yeah.
wasn't bad. Although I must say, um, what I was overwhelmed by was the household responsibilities. I suddenly had a flat and I had to pay rent for it, and I had to take care of utilities. and I had to cook food, and I had to buy groceries, and I had to clean my house, get a maid, and it was just so overwhelming. I felt like all this while I was taken care of because I was living in hostels, and to think that, imagine coming back from office at 11 and I'm like, oh my God, I forgot to buy dal. You don't want to worry about those things.
Yeah.
Um, it was also really, so I decided to live with, so I don't know if you are aware, but Bombay has this flat and flatmates culture where
Of
you
course.
identify a flat and then you find random people on the internet
You,
to live
I think you
with.
forgot what we did after college. We did Nivasa. We were like landlords and
Oh,
brokers. Actually, fun fact on that before we go on, I was of course stalking, I won't say stalking. I was researching before we started this podcast, and I was looking up Minu on LinkedIn. Your last post which you liked was a Nivasa post. Do you know that?
oh,
And it was
no.
5 years ago. So I opened up the news LinkedIn and in the small section called activity. And the activity is like Minu liked something, something Nivasa. I'm like, what? And I opened the post and I saw Lewis had posted something and this was 5 years ago. And that's your last activity on LinkedIn. Um, yeah, LinkedIn is
That's
just
so
a
fascinating.
totally
So,
random place these days. But
yeah.
yeah, you're not missing much. But yeah,
Yeah, I
I'm very,
stopped updating it once I left work.
mm,
I think now it's more like, oh, I'm this person, I changed my life. Here's 10 ways how you should change it. I cannot take it. I
yes,
cannot take
it
it.
is
So
it's
I just,
absolutely cringe.
yeah.
Yeah, LinkedIn, like, oh my God. Anyway, but yeah, I'm very familiar with the flat and flatmate scene in Bombay.
Yeah, so imagine coming home to an apartment that's either empty or it's basically full of strangers. There is a safe space that I have, which is my
Yeah,
room. And I'm going there with, I don't know, packed food because I forgot to buy dal apparently. And I throw my bag and I'm sitting on my mattress and I switch
yeah,
on Netflix and I'm eating this food. And then I'm like, what am I doing? Why am
yeah,
I here? What's the point of all of this? And sure, my friends are around, but it's hard to coordinate with them. I get off work at some time, they get off work at another time.
yeah.
And then this whole so my expectations were wrong because I thought it's going to be fun, fun, exciting, exciting,
Mm.
exciting. I'm going to live this adult life, but it was a lot of like work, like
Yeah.
mundane household chores,
The
and
quote unquote adulting. Adulting is hard. Such a like a I don't know what generation we would be called, but yeah, such a thing like, oh my God, adulting is hard. So yeah, I guess that's what we mean when you mean adulting is hard. Buying dal and missing to buy dal is a
yeah.
problem.
And if I complain about it to my parents, they would be like, "What's wrong with you? Like, what are you complaining about?" I think I
Yeah.
just had really stupid, like really wrong expectations to begin with.
Yeah.
And even if I tried to, I don't know, recuperate and have fun on the weekends, it was just exhausting. So I would have
Mm.
like a heavy.
Whoops. Yes, I can.
I'm sorry. Is this okay?
Yeah. Okay,
Okay.
perfect. There was a bit of an echo, but anyway, small technical glitch. We are back. So yeah, you were saying the weekend was just exhausting.
Yeah,
And yeah,
I
in
mean, yeah,
general.
even if you take a trip or whatever, it's physically exhausting at some. So I
Yeah.
would recover from the weekend probably midweek and then get tired by the end of the week again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think my second year at work was a mess. I I think the learning curve had become flat.
Mm.
Something had come over me. I think people could tell that I was just not happy.
Do you know
Um,
what that was?
I actually don't. I think it was a mix of a lot of things. One, I did not understand what I was doing or why I was there.
Mm.
The other thing was that I just I felt like I was useless.
Mm.
I didn't know what I was like I said, I just felt like I was useless. I was finding it hard to just function. I
Mm-hmm.
would go to office, come back, eat food, go to bed. I
Yeah.
found it really I hated grocery shopping then. Can you imagine that? I was just like, oh
Full
my God,
circle.
I have
Yeah.
to wear my chappals and go to this market with a bag and be like, Bhaiya, can you give me this and that? It's so exhausting. And if you forget something, oh my God, I cannot. There was a time when I thought dal was a luxury, like I would just make like chapati or rice with some veggies and I'd be like, this is it. And I'd be like, I wish I had more dal, but it requires effort. And oh my God, cleaning the pressure cooker is the worst thing. Just these
Wait,
things.
what, did you guys just get a maid? Isn't
could
that
have-
part of the perks of living in India?
I know I could have just gotten a maid. I complicated shit for myself. I was trying to like eat healthy. I don't know what I was doing. I was just stupid. I brought this on myself. And yeah, I was just I don't know what happened, but I do think that at some point I found it really hard to function. And I'm not kidding. I would find it really hard to wake up, get myself off the bed, get to work. I just and Bombay, for some reason, even if you clean up today, leave your window open for 3 hours. Next day, new fresh dust over everything you cleaned yesterday. And I was just exhausted. I don't know what I was looking for. I was just so exhausted. I was tired. I was like, this I cannot do.
So maybe if you had to compare your 2 years when you were in Goregaon in the 70-acre campus with 70 people all talking the same stuff, and the 2 years in Powai with good money but no dal in the kitchen, which time of Bombay did you enjoy more?
Oh my God, I don't know. I think I know bad things from both those times. And I don't know. I guess my first year at both the places. First year at both the places were good because it was
Just
distraction.
novelty, right?
It was
It's
it
something
was
new.
novelty, and first year at both the places were different, and I enjoyed it. Because after the second year I decided to move from both the places.
Yeah. Well, you've been in New York for 4 years, so maybe something has changed. And do you feel like that in New York?
I do. I do feel so. My parents were always in a transferable job, so I've never been like living in a city for more than 3 or 3.5 years. Bombay was the exception, but like I said, Gurgaon was very different from living in Mumbai.
Yeah.
And I think I heard it on a Kenny Sebastian podcast that he said that if you live in a city and while you're walking on the streets, if you're looking into your phone or if you're looking down on the pavement, then it's time for you to move. And I still feel like whenever I step out, I'm not looking at my phone. I am looking at things. I'm like this little thing who's just amazed by what's going on around her. And New York has this tendency to make you feel like you're extraordinary, even though you're not. You're just one in a bunch of millions of people living in the same city. City might be extraordinary. You probably live just ordinary lives, but it makes you feel like you're important. You're a part of something big. And I like that. It took me a while to, like in my first year during my PhD, there was a lot of coursework. Like first year in a PhD program is very hectic. So it was a lot of back and forth between Style Town where I lived and the department.
Yeah.
But there were these moments when I'm just walking back and I stop and I'm like, you know what? I'm in New York. And, I take a detour and I'd like go get something with my friends, go watch a Broadway show or something like that. And it just made me feel so good. I like that NYU is a city campus, so you're not like in a designated college campus. The moment you step out of your building, you're normal. You're not a student. And
You never felt like this in Bombay?
I like Bombay. That's not true. I think I like Bombay. I love that I had my favorite places and my favorite things to do in Bombay. So I do think that New York is a lot close to what Bombay was for me. But I think when I go back to Bombay, I do realize that the attachment is probably because of my friends or the memories that I made in those places. Of course, if I have to start from scratch, Bombay, maybe I'd set up a good life again. But I don't know. It is comparable for me. New York is comparable to Bombay.
Got it.
It's safe.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about being mugged or attacked.
Well, as compared to New York being shot at. So.
There are specific neighborhoods, that is true. Yeah, but it's no Gurugram, I guess.
Gurugram is like a different level. Yeah, I think once you leave Gurugram, you're ready to go to the army after that. you're trained to protect yourself.
Do you have that kind of an attachment with Singapore or no?
Do I look at my phone when I'm walking around Singapore? Not that much, I'd say. because I think less on what is there to be seen. Singapore is a very small place. It's a very homogeneous place. So like a lot of neighborhoods look and feel similar. But yeah, when you go to downtown, yeah, it always does create a sense of awe. It's like yeah, there is a sense of awe, especially when you go downtown, especially when you go to like some of like the parks and like, just the green areas in the city. The city is very green, but there are some parts which are much more greener than the others. So yeah, it does create that sense of like wow. And yeah, Singapore is just it's this place where it's just like it's a small country, and it's so like it's, at least for me, it's very fascinating to see where it started and where it is. And as you sort of deal, and you interact with people every day, you kind of try to think about where it is going. So all of that sort of makes, I think, Singapore a very interesting place. But, do I look at my phone when I'm walking around? Yes, sometimes I do. I don't think like culturally, I think New York is like very, very dense. There's lots more. I won't say Singapore's like that, but yeah, it does have. I enjoy living in the city. It has some charm.
But do you have like your favorite spots that?
Oh yes, yes, yeah. But when you live here long enough, I think you end up having your favorite spot. So I do have my favorite spot for Indian food. I do have my favorite spot for coffee. I do have my favorite spot for like, I don't know, like Chinese food. So a lot of it is just food, I think. I don't know what other favorite spots you have, but yeah, like I know my way around the city. I know like there are places which I enjoy. On certain days, I want to go spend time in that part of the city. On the other days, I want to spend some time in the other part of the city. So yeah, and Singapore is small, so there's not that much. It's not like New York. I think Singapore would be maybe the size of New York. Maybe it's a little smaller. But yeah.
I know that some people find it extremely awkward when they realize that their grocer knows them, or that you go to a restaurant and the waiting staff recognizes you. A lot of people feel really awkward about it, but I like
Oh,
it.
really?
Yeah. I have this friend who keeps switching coffee shops because he's like, or cafes because he's like, no, I'm pretty sure the barista knows me. It's so
I guess how
awkward.
creepy. I think it depends on how creepy the barista is. Like if it's a nice barista, I'm like, yeah, hey, what's up? But yeah, if it's a bit of a creep and you're getting like WhatsApps from the barista,
No, I don't
then
think.
no,
Yeah.
then it's a bit like okay. So PwC, like you started second year, you were like, I don't know what I'm doing. You at some point decided that you were going to go get a PhD. I think your decision to get a PhD is quite intuitive. That's like the logical next step from a master's.
I think
And
it was also the place where I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to just executing my plan. So there are two brains. One is a planning brain, one is the executing brain. When you
yeah,
don't have the energy to plan, you just switch it
yeah.
off and you're like, I'm going to stick to the plan that I had. I'm just going to
Okay,
execute it.
okay. So you took this bit of a detour just to prove to yourself that you could. But fair to say that you managed. You made some money and you realized that, oh, maybe this is something I don't want to do. Do you remember what the final nail in the coffin was when you were like, this is it. I'm going to start applying, and that became very serious.
No, so I to be honest, I don't think that me not enjoying the project that I was in was the only reason for me quitting. I think it was a lot of things, and probably most of them are on me and not the work that I was doing. At the time, of course, I blamed like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't like what this is. But the fact is that I was not in a good space mentally. I felt like it was getting really hard for me to function. And I think, like I said, the people around me, even at work, they did think that it was a good idea for me to, I don't know, do something else. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened because my life looked great on paper. If you did not know me, you worked in the same office as me, you're like, oh yeah, she's fine. She's doing absolutely fine. Like on paper,
Yeah.
she's doing great. But I don't know. I just
It's so
I just
surprising
want to
that
get out.
yeah, I won't say surprising. Surprising is the wrong word, but it's so interesting that you say that because that probably applies to so many different people, and yet you look at them and you're like, oh, life is great, right? And then you just need to ask them, hey, is life great? And they're like, oh no, it's actually not. So yeah, it's very interesting, and I think this I've seen this repeatedly on the podcast. Yeah, I don't know what the takeaway on that is. I don't watch Instagram anymore because I'm like, that is far from the truth. But I've noticed this with a bunch of people, many more than you would sort of expect. But okay, so it was quite obvious that you had to move on. Econ was a logical next step. At some point, you started therapy. Was it as a result of this? Was it when you got to New York? Was it before? When did that happen? And what made you decide to go there? And then we'll of course talk about what you learned, because you said you learned a bunch of cool stuff at therapy. So what made you start? And when did you start?
Yeah, so like I said, my second year in Bombay was pretty hard. I think there were a couple of people who suggested that I probably speak to a therapist. But at the time, I was like, no, I can manage this by myself. It's not a big deal. I think it's just I'm bored. I just need to change things up a little bit.
I'm sleeping too much.
Yeah, maybe
I'm lazy.
Maybe it's all the jet lag from all the traveling that I'm exhausted. No, but yeah, I think it was just I was making up excuses, and I've always been the kind who thinks that I can, manage myself with a bit of self-talk. And so I thought it's manageable, it's fine. Of course, when I came to New York, novelty took over, and I did not feel anything at all. It was great. I just threw myself into school and studies, and I made a bunch of friends here. I was enjoying the city, just like lots of things to do, lots of things to explore, lots of material to study for. And I was just occupied. At some point, I think it hit me that I had just abandoned my entire support system back in India and moved to this new place. And I'm studying so much. First year is so hectic. And then imposter syndrome hits on top of that. And I just... so to be honest, I decided to take up therapy only because I was a little stressed and anxious about the coursework. I knew that this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. I have to do this for 6 years. So I should just go find some ways to manage my stress and anxiety about this high volume studying that I'm doing. So I walked in for that. And that's not what the therapy sessions sort of became centered around. So, okay, so I used to go for this thing called talk therapy, or I think it's just called therapy. It's what you see in like popular media, where you meet a person who's a psychotherapist, and you're sitting on this couch or like a very comfortable chair, and then you just talk. So I was very skeptical when I went in first, because I was just like, okay, here are things, I have a lot of things to do, and I'm just very anxious. I don't know if I'm smart enough. I don't know if they made a mistake by admitting me here, and just tell me what to do to fix it. And she was like, no, this is not how this works. Let's just talk about things. And for the first 5-6 sessions, I was just talking about life and how this person pissed me off, and how I can see on WhatsApp that my friends back home are, I don't know, making plans to go to the same favorite places, but now without me. Like every little bits, I'm just complaining and ranting to her, and she's just sitting there and listening. So at some point, I was like, this is just useless. I don't know what the point of this is. If you really want to know about my life, sure, I'll just come and rant in here. Except after some point, she started asking me questions. She would be like, tell me a little bit more about this. And she would, like, what if this was the case? Would you still feel that way? And the focus completely shifted from the stress and anxiety part. I think that was just like, it's a given. You have to deal with it. You just learn how to deal with it throughout the program. And so the focus shifted on the kind of person that I had become. So I don't know what your impression of me was in Stephens, but over time, by this time that I had come to New York, I had become a lot more quieter and very particular about things. If you pick something up from somewhere, you have to put it back. Very particular about punctuality. I had this, I also thought that I had become an introvert, that I wanted to, I felt comfortable in the confines of my room. I wanted some me time, and I couldn't, like, it was exhausting to be talking to people all the time. And I had very high standards for loyalty and friendship. Like 3 strikes and you're out. Like, I don't care about you anymore. And I thought this is just the person I have grown up into. And I mean, of course, it's not, these are not the best traits. They are functional. They help you, I don't know, power through life, being punctual and having a checklist and being so particular. But I thought this is just the kind of person I am. And I just have to accept it. There are goods, there are bads, and I just have to accept it and live with it. But I think what the therapist made me realize that this is not who I am. These are some acquired behaviors. And if you look at it, this is natural, right? If I told you, Ruben, I think people can be exhausting, I cannot hang out all the time. Like, I can meet you once or twice. You'll be like, yeah, that makes sense. You know, it's a very natural behavior.
Yeah.
It's very easy to normalize or to think that this is what you've become. That, I was an extrovert, now I've become an introvert. And
Yeah.
so I thought, this is just, I'm just an annoying, grumpy person. What's the big deal? And like, whoever wants to be a part of my life has to get with it. Like, this is who I am, and you just accept me. And then she told me this story. Again, I haven't done psychology, but this was the session that just made me feel like, you and I are friends. We're going to do this like for another year. So she told me about this. So think of like a 5-year-old child. Who can walk around, who can quite honestly communicate what he or she needs. You still need a nanny or a guardian or a parent with that child, so that, if the child falls, it doesn't get hurt. Make sure that the child is feeling loved and feels secure, and all of these things. Now imagine the same child grown up to be, 25-year-old adult. Now, if you still had a nanny with the 25-year-old adult, making sure that they feel loved and that they don't hurt themselves and they don't like fall down and break a neck, you'd think this is unhealthy. And you think this is unhealthy because the 25-year-old should be capable of taking care of themselves, right? So if someone says, you know what, I know you like me, but I don't like you back, big deal. They would recover from it. And of course it would hurt, but you'd get over it at some point. But now replace the nanny with your defense mechanism. So you have a brain so you have a conscious mind that makes these decisions, and then you have your defenses. Defenses are like some psychological strategies of what to deny, what to repress, what to play up, etc. And when you're a child, defenses are very strong. And that's true because it's critical for survival. Like, imagine leaving your child at daycare. You have a sense of time. You love your baby. You're going to come back and pick your baby up at 6 p.m. But the child doesn't know that. Child thinks you've just abandoned them at this center with 70 other kids being taken care of this one adult. Everyone's screeching, crying. You also feel abandoned. Yeah. But at some point, the child catches up, right? They get attached to their caregiver at the preschool, and then they start become friends with other kids around them. They help hold their hands, tie each other's shoelaces, and you learn to survive even in that situation because your defenses are strong. And what happens is that when you grow up, your defenses become smarter. They grow up like probably at a 2x rate, and so now if someone disappoints you, your defense might be like, you know what, we cannot let you get hurt again. So now we're going to have higher standards for people who are in your life. So then, so when I say that, I got invited to this dinner, it's get together, maybe I want to go. Maybe my authentic self is like, yeah, it's going to be fun. We'll see how it goes. My defenses are going to be like, yeah, but they're going to ask me about work and what's happening. And I have to listen to them talk about their lives. And it's so exhausting. People are so exhausting. I don't want to go. And so there's this surface response, which is triggered by your defense. But if you dig a little deeper, there's a reason for it. And these things like spread out really fast. Like abandonment issues become trust issues. And then you just become this person that I'm not going to let anyone hurt me. I'm going to build up these walls. It's just better not to engage with these people. And so when she would ask me these questions about what if someone shows up late? What's the big deal about it? I mean,
Yeah.
maybe they got stuck somewhere. I'm like, no, it just means that they don't respect my time. And she's like, why do you think that someone not showing up means they don't respect? And then, she started chipping away at bits of it. And there were some sessions where she would just ask me a question and I would just start crying for no reason. And I'm like, I don't know why I'm crying. She's like, that's okay. And then I realized that all of these defense mechanisms are not bad. They were in place to protect you, but at some point you don't need them. So you need to ask yourself, is this behavior a surface response, or what do I really want versus why am I behaving like this? And to be able to separate that. And I think that has made a huge difference. Like now, I mean, if you're doing this just to yourself, it's okay. But if it affects how I interact with you, like for example, I'm like, Ruben, let's meet at 9, and then you show up at 9:05, and I'm like, how dare you? Like, couldn't you just? You'd be like, fine, stop being so neurotic about time.
Yeah.
It's okay. And I keep doing this 3 or 4 times. At some point, you'll be like, oh my God, this is too much to handle. Right? And it's very hard for me to explain to you why I care so much about punctuality.
Correct.
And about being so particular and there being rules, etc. So and then I realized, okay, maybe I'm not that horrible a person. I just need to separate this defense. I need to, be like, okay, I like this person. I'm going to tell them that I like them. If they don't like me back, we'll see how it goes. And that just to allow yourself to get hurt a little bit and then recover from it and then try again. To tell yourself that you're capable. You're capable of taking care of yourself. That just changed my mind. I mean, it blew my mind. I was like, what? I'm not a horrible person? Are you serious? And she was really nice. I think it's very important to have a good therapist, to have someone who you're confident is not judging and who's listening. I think it also helped me that this was through NYU. And so I didn't have to, wait around until I was assigned somebody. It was a walk-in. They set me up with somebody, and it was, and it was covered by my health insurance. So
oh wow!
I was like,
so
you want to meet me
it.
once every 2 weeks? Let's do it.
That sounds good. So do you still go to therapy?
No, I stopped after a year and a half because I think I picked up the skill. I picked up the skill to ask myself, is this behavior authentic or is this behavior a defense response? And I think the idea is to just keep on practicing this skill until you become really good at it. And then you can maybe not completely, but in some sense, in a healthy way, move from that extreme end of being very self-preservative and protective to being a little open to, let's see, maybe it won't hurt that bad. And just see how that goes. So
are you now okay with people being late when they show up?
I think I maybe if you're late 3-4 times, I'd just be like, dude, you need to be a better person. Stop being so tardy.
You need to be a better person. Meet my standards.
But I'm definitely not as crazy as I thought I was. And crazy is not the right word. But
nobody's crazy.
Yeah, but I recognize that it is a little hard to be around me. And now I think I'm okay. I don't know.
Has anybody come and told you that, oh, Minu, like, you're really different, from the last time I met you?
No.
Has anybody said that to you? No?
No, but I don't know. No.
Did anybody tell you the alternative? Like at some point, maybe before you started therapy, like, you're really hard to hang out with. Like, has anybody said that to you?
No, I think I have this really close friend who's also doing a PhD, and we used to stay in touch all the time because we had very relatable experiences. It becomes hard to talk about these things to people who are not in a PhD program because they're like, what are you complaining about? You had good grades. Are you telling me it's hard to do a PhD for you? Shut up. Yeah. And I'm like, no, like you're just like, you cannot negate my issues so it's easier to talk about these things to another PhD student. And we became really good friends. And so he would tell me that, sometimes when I would overreact to something, he'd be like, Minu, have you asked yourself, why is this such a big deal to you? And I'm like, no, it's just these are how things should be. These are like values you should have, being on time, being loyal. And he was like, okay. But and then of course he knew that I was talking to a therapist, and I think now he hasn't like told me that I'm a better person, but I think it's easier for me to communicate if something bothers me, as opposed to being like, this is the standard, you should match my standards.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because I personally, like, even the stuff you were saying around wanting me time, being very punctual, or requiring people. I won't say requiring people, but I will always show up to a meeting like 1 minute before it, and if you're not there by like say 9:01 or 9:02, I'm just like, oh my god, like this person doesn't have their act together. Like, I'm guilty of it sometimes, but I try my best to do that. And also sort of thinking like, I would say I was a very strong extrovert, or I would maybe identify myself as a strong extrovert. I think some of the schools even said that. But now, and I don't know if it was a pandemic thing or not, but I'm just like, I'm an introvert now. I don't want to hang out. So yeah, that's super interesting that it's probably also just like defense mechanism. I never actually thought about it.
I mean, I think it's absolutely good that you expect people around you to be punctual. That's not the problem. The problem is that when someone's not punctual, if you take it personally, if you feel like they're doing this to disrespect you, that probably means that you're overthinking, and that overthinking comes from. I mean, I'm not saying it's completely baseless. It comes from a place that's meant to protect you, but it's not necessary. You can scale that back down a little bit and probably have a better social life.
So apart from you not feeling pissed at people who are late, like how would you say, or how do you see yourself different now than maybe when you just landed up in New York? Are you like less stressed? Are you less anxious?
No, so that's not true. I think that I think being in a PhD program, I don't know, it might be true for other jobs as well, I don't know, but I know for sure that being a PhD student, there's a certain baseline level of stress that's always there, and you have to sort of learn to live with it, and a bit of imposter syndrome, like like it's like a roller coaster. One day I wake up and I think the research I'm doing is great, it makes sense. The other day I wake up and I'm like, this is nonsense, someone's going to call me out on it. It's so you have to learn to sort of deal with that. But I think what it has taught me is to be able to identify what are things that are in my control and identify things that are not in my control. So to answer your question, how am I different? I think I'm less turbulent as a person than I was when I just came to New York. I think, I mean, of course, things that you can control, you should attack it, fix it, make it do what you want it to do. But things that you cannot control, at some point you have to accept it. It's easier said than done, but you have to get yourself to the point that that you can like cry about it, you can be angry, you can rant about it. All of this takes energy, and it takes focus and energy away from things that are in your control. And so just make sure that you are in the process of accepting it. It's okay. Complain about it. Today I want to complain about it. Tomorrow I don't want to complain about it. That's fine. But make sure that you're working through those stages to getting to acceptance. And because what else can you do? No one's going to change the world for you.
True.
Also the expectations of, like making a huge difference, making a mark in the world. I'm going to change everyone's life. All of that just goes away. Now
yes, I remember we spoke about this on the rooftop.
Yes.
What is this big impact?
I don't know. I just feel like I ask myself, why am I doing this? And my answer is that because I like it. Because I like doing econ research. Do I think it's the most useful thing to do? I don't know. Do I think it's going to change everyone's life? I don't know, but it's not my job. I'm doing it because I like it. If it has policy implications, great. You are happy. I am also happy that it has policy implications. But that's not my objective. I'm doing this because it's a question that I'm invested in. I would like to read about it. I'd like to resolve this puzzle in my head. But yeah, I think if you expect yourself to change the world, then you're just setting yourself up for disappointment. I don't know. maybe I'm tired. Maybe there are people who have the energy.
No, I think I think that I wrote about this. This is actually a great plug. Louis should pay me for this. But Louis has started this new micro blogging platform where you write blogs only for 300 words. So it's very
What is
easy.
it called?
It's called Nicheless. Nichess, Elless, Nicheless. And yeah, it's actually a very cool idea. I don't know, Louis, you got to pay me for this, Louis, for this plug, yeah. But it's basically 300 words, so it's less stress of writing an entire article. You just write 300 words, and it's not on a specific topic. We think about very diverse things, so that's why it's called nicheless. It's not in a niche. And anyway, long story short, Louis, you don't get any more time. But I wrote this post about called ambition versus acceptance, and it's basically the same thing. Wherein I would say all of us who went to college were fairly ambitious people. And over the last few years, I've realized that there's a lot of things where you just have to accept. It is what it is, right? It's beyond your control. And there is, I think, this balance between being ambitious and being accepting. Because if you just accept everything, then okay, it is what it is, right? Status quo, you just let's accept. You extend that to the nth maybe degree, you become a monk, right? You just accept as it is, you sit, and maybe that's great, right? Those monks I'm sure pretty happy. And then of course you extend ambition to the nth degree, and maybe you're Elon Musk, right? I don't know. But I don't think I will ever become a monk or I will ever become Elon Musk. But finding that balance of, how do you balance being ambitious and accepting is like a big question in my mind. Because at least for me, you don't want to accept everything. But at the same time, you don't want to be over ambitious, as you said, because you're just setting up that for failure. So yeah, I don't know. There's no answer to that question, but that's something which I spend some time thinking about on what that balance looks like. The closest I've come to an answer to it is that you can be ambitious in the long term, but very accepting in the short term. So day to day, you just learn to accept things as they are. But where you spend your time or where you would like to be maybe 5-7 years down the line is ambitious. But on every day you're just I will just accept things as they happen. So yeah.
I mean, I just feel like if you're complacent about where you are, if you're too comfortable, maybe you should try and change that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you're spreading yourself thin, doing 1,000 projects, and I don't know. That's not necessary. I mean, if it gives you joy, sure, but not to prove something to someone. Or I feel like our generation was sold this idea that we're unique, that each of us is unique and we're meant to do extraordinary things. That's a lie. Maybe we are making a difference to people in our lives. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I think. For me, the way I think about it is, I think there is this, I think most of us have the desire to create some impact, but I feel like if you can do it for 5-6 people, that's anyway better than a lot more. I remember somebody, I think it was Rahul Rajkova in the previous podcast or in one of the episodes. He was he's a teacher, I think. I don't know if he's still a teacher. We spoke, I think, almost a year and a half ago. But he's if I can sort of create an impact on the 50 people in my class, or 500 people. That means I'm going to teach 10 batches, and there's about 50 people per batch. I'm very happy at the end of my life that if I can do that for 500 people, that's big enough, right? So yeah, I do agree. A lot of us, I think, get started with making. Oh my God, yeah, you're right. We sold this dream. You got to make impact. You have the ability. To make the impact. Oh, wow!
You're the creme de la creme.
You are the creme de la creme. Oh my God. Anyway. Okay, I know we are almost at the hour. So, and there are some more things I want to talk to you about. You started off saying that you were a person who had no goals for themselves, and you basically just took on goals what people in your cohort, the smart people who got the great marks, you just took on those goals. What are your goals now? What is the goal of the cohort of econ PhDs? In the United States, what is your goal?
Oh, if I go by the book, my goal should be to get an academic position in, I don't know, the top 50 departments, Ruben. But I don't know. I think what I have realized is that I like doing research, and I'm going to keep doing it as long as it makes me happy. If I'm in the top 10 department or not, if I'm in India or if I'm in the US, if I'm in Europe, anywhere, if I'm in the industry or if I'm in academia, I don't care. I'm just going to do it for as long as I can because I enjoy it. If I don't like it at some point, I'm happy to try something else. And I think all of us have the benefit that because we have because of the institutions that we went to, our fallback option, if we decide to switch things up, is not that bad. We can always get a decent job if we change tracks. But I mean, as of now, I'm just going to try and stay in academia. I'll take a good paying job at the end of it, and I don't know, do things that I like. I don't know. I don't have any goals per se of this is the city I want to live in. This is the kind of, I don't know, 6-figure salary that I don't have those goals. Would I like it? Sure. But am I going to kill myself for it? No.
Got it. How many more years for your PhD?
So it's supposed to be a 6-year program. I'm in my 5th year now. So if everything goes well, maybe in a year and a half I'll be out.
So we should absolutely touch base in a year and a half and see what you're up to next.
You know, it's so weird that when I talk to friends, so COVID sort of helped me reconnect with a lot of people who I'd lost touch with. And no matter when I talk to them, they've changed jobs, they've gotten married, they've had, I don't know, 600 babies. And I'm like, yeah, I'm still in New York doing my PhD. And they're like, what? That was the thing you said 2 years ago. I'm like, yeah, I'm still here in New York doing my PhD. So yeah, I think if I keep the same yardstick of what's progress as people who are outside of academia, then I'm going to be like, what have I done with my life? But I know that I have made progress in my own whatever.
Of course you have. Okay, as we wrap up, what are 2 pieces of advice you have for your 20-year-old self?
I honestly think that if I gave my 20-year-old self any advice, she wouldn't take it. She'd just
so
be
many
like,
people say this.
that whatever you want to say. But I don't know. I think yeah, one thing I would tell is that stop worrying too much about things not in your control. That you have to at some point just let things happen. And it's not that bad. You know, you're going to be fine. You don't have to worry about every detail in your life. You don't have to. Yeah, it's going to be fine. There are a lot of people around you who care for you. They're going to be there for you, and it's going to be fine. You don't have to push hard all the time. Just sometimes it's okay to relax. You don't. Yeah, you don't have to have the stellar CV and like, kill yourself for it. It's not worth it. But yes, it was a good idea to keep up good grades, you know, as a backup. What if, what if someone decides to look at my class 10th mark sheet? Nobody does, but what if I need to have good grades there? The other piece of advice that I would give is to have reasonable expectations. I think, so whenever you hear about experiences or advice from people, there is a bit of survivorship bias, and account for it. So when someone tells you a really wonderful thing about something you're going to get into, just lower your expectations a little bit more. You know, you just be reasonable. Know what you're getting into. And then you would be less likely to be disappointed. And you don't have, another piece of advice, you don't have to take care of yourself always. Ask for help. It's fine to ask for help. You don't have to do everything by yourself. Get a maid. Get a maid. Don't have to clean your house and wash your clothes all the time. Get a maid. Just get a maid. Yeah, these are the 3 pieces of advice I would give.
Got it. Yeah. So, get a maid. That's the only one I remember, I think. Get a maid. It's okay when things are out of your control and you don't have to take care of yourself. Was that it? Oh, moderate your expectations.
Have reasonable expectations.
Have reasonable expectations. Yeah, I said like a true economist. Survivorship bias. For people who don't know what that is, we don't have time to get into it. But if you've seen a plane with a bunch of dots on Twitter or any social, that's basically the survivorship bias diagram. Homework to go and figure out what that is. It's actually it's a very good. Yeah, it's a very interesting concept. Okay, we are well past the hour. As we wrap up, what is one question you have for me after all the questions? I hope you haven't felt that I've been asking you too many questions. I hope this felt like a conversation. I know I'm a bit rusty from doing this for not doing this for a long time.
It's funny you say that. I do think that I spoke a lot, so it was. But okay.
So yeah, what question do you have for me?
Okay. What question do I have for you? How do you feel about aging? I thought a lot about what am I going to ask Ruben, and this is the question I decided on. What do you think about aging? Do you think that this process has been seamless, or do you think that there was a specific time when you felt like you suddenly started realizing that, you see these physical, emotional, or social changes around you, either in terms of capabilities of what you can do and expectations of what people expect from you? And how comfortable are you with it?
Wow, this is a heavy question, yeah. What do I feel about aging? So I think once I turned 28, 29, I could feel that, like my physical self is not the same as it used to be. And then, yeah, just like comparing myself to when I was like maybe not even 21, but like when I was 23, 24, 25, I remember like physically I just had much more like energy. And hitting 26, 27, I'm not saying 26, 27, but like 28, 29, you started feeling that, and it starts in the most like random ways wherein, you cannot stand red eye flights anymore. You like really get exhausted at the end of it. Hangovers are horrible. Like they like you just do not want to drink alcohol. Like now when I go out, I'm just like, I know what my hangover is going to feel. So like I just do not want to drink. Like please no. So those are like just minor things, and they sort of start creeping up. And I think when that happens, even the realization that this is only going to continue and only going to get worse. Like for recently, I started going to the gym. I would never go to the gym. And the reason I do that is like not to like sort of bulk up and things like that, but I know that I need to like consciously maintain my body. Else by the time I'm 40, like it's going to be like, what is that term we used to have? Increasing at increasing rate, decreasing at increasing rate, or decreasing at decreasing. Like it's like the complete end of the curve. Like shit gets bad really fast. So yeah, I think it's real. I've accepted the fact that it is real. I think for a very short period of time, I was like, oh, I'm actually lazy. Oh, I'm not sleeping enough. But I've accepted it's real. I know that I need to, I don't compromise on my 8 hours of sleep. I thoroughly enjoy it, so I don't complain at all. But I will not compromise on like 8 hours of sleep. I make it a point to sort of like exercise. I'm trying to be more like health checkups. I go to do health checkups now. Like I'm just like I would never get like I got my first full body health checkup like 9 months ago. So yeah, I think to your question, it is very real. It is inevitable. How do I feel about it? I don't feel too bad about it because I think, I don't know if it's an aging thing, but I have like enjoyed the process of years passing by in the last 3-4 years for a few reasons. Number one, you're just much more comfortable in your own skin. I think I know myself much better. I know what I like, what I don't like. So I'm very comfortable with myself. I think just like 2, 3, 4 years ago, not very comfortable in your own skin. I think constantly seeking for like approval from others and things like that. I think it's very common. So yeah, those are the parts I think I like about aging. You are wiser a little bit. You can learn from your own experiences. I don't think you get smarter, but you do sort of have more experiences to to look back and if you reflect on them, I think there's a lot to learn because you have spent a fair amount of time in the world and you have some feedback on what works and what doesn't. So yeah, long story short, it is quite real. Physically, it's been something to come to terms with, and like if you actually have to work towards it, else it's gonna get bad. I think more about buying life insurance. I think more about buying health insurance. That I'm more concerned about, like, do I have enough health insurance and how much money I have in the bank? So yeah, those I would say are like the manifestations of what I think about aging. I don't know if that answers your question. I do follow a lot of this new chatter. I haven't got onto that bandwagon yet about longevity. I know in the US it's a big thing wherein they're like, oh, you know what, aging is just a disease and we need to like cure it. So a lot of people are on this trip. I don't do supplements and things like that. There are a bunch of like people like these they call it biohackers, wherein they will do stuff wherein you basically it's not like drugs, but it's just like chemicals. Like you have a deficiency, you will have that, and yeah. So I don't know any of that, but maybe at some point, but as these things get better and more in the mainstream, then maybe. So yeah, okay. I don't know if that answered your question.
So if I understand correctly, you said that you have noticed physical changes. You're not the biggest fan of them, but you've started accepting it.
Yeah.
You appreciate the emotional changes.
Yes, I do appreciate
that you feel a lot more secure, you're more comfortable in your own skin. What about social expectations? Do you feel
like socially? Oh, that's a good question. I do feel so. How do I put this? I think till date, Ruben has been operating as single player for a very long period of time, and that has been great. But now that it feels like I need to be operating like on a multiplayer. Like I'm not the only player in this game. Maybe that's because I'm like the eldest son, like the eldest, maybe like in my generation, in my family. So things like, and nobody, to be honest, has explicitly like brought this up, but there is this question on, like what is my responsibility towards like my aging family, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when do they show up as like an important thing? Like they of course are, but as time progresses, that's something which I've been thinking about. So I think that's maybe one like social. In terms of sort of like, I know a lot of people our age, getting married, having kids. I think for me that hasn't been that much of a thing. Yeah, I know like a lot of our friends and their families are a bit different. But for me personally, that hasn't been a thing. So it's in the back of my mind. It surely is. But yeah, that I won't say that's much of a thing. I think it also maybe slightly helps that I work at like startups wherein in general, irrespective of your age, like people are just young at heart. So I do not work with a lot of old people, irrespective of their age. So yeah, like my boss is probably party harder than me, and I'm just like, wait, didn't you all go through this 30 experience wherein hangovers are really bad? Like, how are you guys doing this? But yeah, they're like mums, and I'm just like, wow, you guys, like you'll go back home and you'll have 2 kids to take care. I'm in like immense respect. So yeah, I think the only thing which maybe like is a big question is like, yeah, like moving from like a single player game to now having like other players in the game.
More people in your objective function.
Yeah, more people in my object. I don't know what the fuck that means, but more people in my objective function. But other than that, not much. What about you? I'm curious to know what you think. This is such a like, profound question.
So I think around COVID, I started noticing that my hair had started graying, and I don't think it's genetic. I think it's a lot of it is brought upon by stress, because I think during COVID, it just exponentially the rate of my hair graying went up. And to be honest, I think my parents and my sister, they were a bit concerned. They were like, well, do you want to color it? Because you're too young to have, I don't know, gray hair.
Yeah. I must say, a lot of our friends have started getting gray hair strands in their beards. And not one, a lot of them. So it is not as uncommon as you might think.
Yeah, I do think that it is brought upon by stress, though.
Yeah.
This premature graying. But to be honest, I think I like it. I think I like a little bit of salt and pepper, and I would like that it grows out more uniformly as opposed to being, concentrated in certain areas. But that aspect of it, I think it's a little hard to convince other people because I think everyone just finds it very easy to suggest that you color your hair. And I'm like, I've thought about it and I don't want to do it. But other things like, I can't stay up very late into the night. It's very hard. It ruins the next day for me. Like you said, there are some physical limitations. I cannot, if I eat wrong, I feel weird. If I eat too much, I feel like I'm going to die. But like when you're in college, you go to these restaurants, you just like stuff yourself up for the next 2 weeks, So I do notice those things. Those things I'm not okay with. I have also like started doing yoga and going to the gym only because I want to make sure that also we are not that old. I mean, 28 is not the worst thing. I feel like if I talk about these things to my parents, they're like, I don't know what you're complaining about, like when I walk, my knee hurts. So I don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, it's true. Like I could fall down, it wouldn't mean anything. Now if I sleep differently, it hurts the next day. Those things I'm not okay with, and I'm trying to, I don't know, go to the gym, and I am taking vitamins. I take these like multivitamins and things like that to make up for whatever crap I'm cooking and eating. In terms of emotional aspects, I do feel like, I think if I compare myself to a 17-year-old self, I do think that my confidence has gone down, but the sense of security has gone up. I don't think that I'm not the king, like I'm not the best thing in the world, but I'm very secure about however I am. In terms of social expectations, I feel like I'm still in that place where I don't have any dependence. So I don't feel like anybody is, like asking me to get my act together. But I do, when I compare myself to people who are not doing their PhDs, I do feel like maybe it would be nice to have a sense of where I'm going to live, what I'm going to do, and some certainty. I would like to start saving for my old age versus living on my stipend. But those, I don't know. It's hard to explain to someone who's outside of this system that it's okay, that rules are a bit different for me. Same thing with like expectations around marriage and stuff. I have friends who are married, have kids, and my parents would be like, they are happy. What's with you?
Survivorship bias. Let me teach you about that.
So thankfully my parents understand. They don't fight with me about these things. Like if I tell them that, like I have a lot on my plate and these are the things that I worry about. This is something that I signed up for and I want to make sure that I'm okay on this front before I take somebody on into my life. My parents get it. And
well, shout out to them.
No, I feel I'm so thankful that when I've been away from home since undergrad and we all grew up separately. My parents grew up, I grew up with very different, what they think of me is probably not the kind of person that I am. So to make sure that we are in sync about how I have grown up and what they think about stuff, about life, and how were they when they were my age, all of that. I'm so grateful that my parents are open to having those conversations and are more open to sort of realizing that this child is not easy, that this child has a mind of her own and it's okay. It's fine.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. I guess parents, the quicker they learn that, the better.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even know who I'm talking to. Am I talking to my parents or my friends who are now parents? Wow. Crazy. Well, for my friends who are now parents, yeah, just let your kids be. They will be fine. All of us turned out fine, despite our parents, even though they loved us a lot. But we are where we are, despite a lot of the drama, and your kids will be fine too.
No, I feel like our friends who become parents, they're gonna take their kids as projects and try to fix them up.
100%. Like you already see them. Like I know, like maybe not our peers, but like people like 5-6 years ahead, older than us, sending them to school, making them like learn before they're 2 and 3. I'm like, you're doing the same shit that you were complaining about. Like, just let it be. Like, and not even about people who have kids now. People are planning. They're like, this is literally a conversation I have with people. You know, man, it costs $1 million to raise a kid. I'm just like, what? First of all, why the hell have you done that calculation? And how did you land up at $1 million to raise a kid? And they have this math. I'm like, wow, man. Like, I think my parents spent like, thanks to, you know, the cheap subsidy of Stephens, they probably didn't spend 10 lakhs to raise me or something. I don't fucking know how much they spent to raise me, but it was surely like a much smaller number than $1 million. But yeah, I am very worried. Well, I'm not worried, but
maybe you make the same choices when you have a child. Maybe you're just unaware of
oh my God.
the entire space. And
yeah, because it is weird. I do agree. Like when you have a kid, you know, I don't know, you're concerned about them, but like you said, right, you don't want to be a nanny at like running around 25-year-old kid. Yeah? That's kind of like weird. Anyway, I hope some of our friends prove me wrong and they have great kids. We maybe hopefully get on this board. Wow, friends have kids. Anyway, Minu, we've been at this for an hour and a half. Wow, so much for not editing.
I'm so
I don't know if no, not at all. I've been debating on what the ideal length of this podcast should be. And this time around, I'm going to do something differently. So I'm going to edit less. I'm going to let conversations go. I was recently watching a podcast by this guy called Lex Friedman, who I respect a lot, and he had a podcast which was 8 hours long, and
wow.
Despite the fact it was 8 hours long, like I listened to every moment of it because it was such a good conversation. So I don't know if I'm going to put it up as it is, but I'm leading. We'll just put up 90 minutes of this conversation, and if you want to listen to it, you listen to it, and if you don't, you
go to bed. Yeah,
go to bed. Yeah. Anyway, best way for people to get in touch with you, is it Facebook? I saw you have your number on LinkedIn, so just call her.
Oh my God, I have my number on LinkedIn?
There's some number on LinkedIn. I'm like, wow, that's bold.
Oh shit. Oh no. Please don't call me. I think Instagram probably to get in touch with me, or I don't know, Twitter. I don't like Facebook. I have bad memories of Facebook. Yeah, but okay, I think any of these places is fine.
Got it.
Yeah.
So, what's your handle on Instagram and on Twitter?
I don't know. What? What are you saying?
What do people have to Google to find you on Instagram? It's like I don't
know. Don't you just look up the name? It's okay, Minu _Philip on Instagram.
Okay, and on Twitter?
Oh my God. On Twitter? Oh, it's at Minu Philip 3, where M and P are in caps.
Okay, great. Oh
my God.
Yeah, okay. I think you have like over 100 followers on Twitter, which is more than I have. So it's
really?
Wow. Yeah, you do.
I don't participate on Twitter. I just look. I just exist to read other people's tweets.
Yeah, same. But maybe I'll be a bit more active with this podcast. Yeah, you never know who you find there. Anyway, I think we should wrap this. Thank you so much for spending your morning chatting. It was so good. I did usually when I do this, I speak to people after I haven't usually seen them in like years, and it's interesting. But I was like, oh, I just met Minu a few weeks ago. I don't know if it'll be a fun conversation, or maybe I'm very rusty, but it turned out to be a super fun conversation. Lots to listen back and just think about. So yeah, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for inviting me. I had a lot of fun. I was very conscious, as you know. I think at some point I was like, this is just a conversation. Of course,
Yes.
when I hear the recording, I'm going to be like, oh my God, this voice is so chill. Oh my God, how could I have said that? But
Well, it's done now. And
it's
I
done.
think it's an awesome conversation.
Yeah. Yay.
Okay.